Oh my god, wow, Tensura is back for another rerun. Time to see our 6th Rimuru in a guide in the near future. So all of these characters receive some minor buffs, and since we're not covering any of the units here, these will be quite brief. So we're starting with the OG slime units. Slime Rimuru received a tiny buff to its true art, a 10,000% multiplier increase, and an extra 20% more damage res reduction, making him a budget damage res down character. Other than that, he's quite mid and you wouldn't use him unless you were missing a luck unit. Next up, we have Human Rimuru. He's a great general team supporter that can provide both arch gen, healing, and debuff immunity that cleanses. And because he's already pretty good, his buffs are minimal. An extra 5 seconds on his status res up, 8,000% multiplier increase on his true art. If you don't have this guy, I'd actually recommend doing your 1 guarantee on his rerun banner. Milla received a few buffs. Her passive, whereas her HP decreases, she'll gain up to 100% damage rather than 50%. Her arts now increase his own arts by an extra 1 per second, and her true art deals 27,000% more damage than before. Willem has always had a niche usage, being a reflect unit, which nowadays in modern content is unusable, so I cannot recommend you getting her. Next up, we have Benimaru. He's a sub DPS where he kinda deals some damage while also providing some magic res down. His true art now deals 8,000% more damage than before, and his burn lasts 4 seconds longer, while also reducing magic res by an extra 10%. These are really small buffs, but they're okay, though this guy wouldn't be your target on the banner. If you already have Human Rimuru, I would actually recommend skipping this banner. On to the Christmas slime characters.
Yay, Christmas!
First up, we have Santa Rimuru, who is basically a magic nuke supporter. He received a small buff to his true art, which now deals 15,000% more damage than before, and he increases allies damage and magic damage by an extra 20% each, so you can buff 200% for a magic ally. Keep in mind, after Summer Lisa gets her Dream Awakening buffs, she'll be better than this guy in most aspects, so I personally wouldn't put this guy on priority. Next up, we have Santa Millum, who's basically just the average type of Type E art gener that provides crit. She received a small buff to her true art, which got a 10,000% increase on her true art and an extra 1 APS for the team. 5 APS is nice for a true arts arch gen, and if you're lacking a Type E arch gen, this could be decent, but otherwise, she isn't someone you should go for, as you might have Sunraku, who is just straight up better. Lastly, for the Christmas Tensura characters, we got a small buff to Santa Shion. She's basically a nuker or DPS. Her arts now stack 60% of own attack and damage up to 240%, which is nice, but you're going to need supports to get her ramping this up. But unless you're accuracy nuking, you wouldn't use her much, as an ascended DPS unit is basically just better. Next up, we have the New Year's units. New Year's Rimuru is a team-wide physical damage up ramper and sort of a dark version of the OG box without the crit. He got the multiplier buff on True Art, now dealing 75,000% damage and stacking physical damage by 70% per use of True Art. And a Spectral Dream Awakening got a small buff, in which it now increases his own crit damage by 90%. But I'd still run the Aqueous Dream, as that helps out the team more. I would not recommend going for him. New Year's Millum is a nuke support similar to Forte, but does res down rather than damage up. She got a small buff to her passive, which now lasts 90 seconds and increases allies attack by 80% at the start of quest over the previous 60 seconds and 50% attack, which is nice. Her true arts also received a small buff, in which lasts 5 seconds longer than before to 20 seconds now, and reduces enemies light res by 80% over the previous 70%, which is decent and can be considered in some light nuking teams. But by no means do you need her, as units like Forte and Lupia are more general usage and I'd say even better. Lastly, we have the Ascended Slime units. Starting up, we have Demon Lord Rimuru, in which he received a small buff to his super art, which now deals 170,000% damage. A 10,000% increase from before, and a stackable dark damage for the team has been increased by 10%, so each usage now grants a team-wide 130% dark damage up. This is pretty nice, especially for the Demon Lord Rimuru players who do the art super art rotation, and they can now deal a bit more damage than before. Next up, we have Combat Form Millum, who is basically a failed DPS breaker unit. Her passive now increases own arts by 2 per second, one more than before, and her true art can now go up to a maximum of 20,000 break power, and has a base break power of 4,000 now, while increasing by 4k per usage. The issue with this is using another art will reset this entire effect and you'll have to start over. Super Art received a 10,000% increase on every effect, in which he can reach a maximum of 540,000% damage with max stacks. Again, the issue is using other arts will reset these effects. Because of that, he is still pretty much unusable in most content. The last unit we have is Diablo, the average Mono Dark Demon support. He received some nice QL buffs and now only requiring to be above 80% HP to increase the units left and right of him, arts by 6 per second, and his super art deals 150,000% dark damage, 20,000% more than before, and now reduces dark res by 130%, 10% more than before, which is alright. And his true weapon now only requires his HP to be at 50% minimum to activate his Arch Gen passive, which makes him usable in stages where your HP could take a massive hit. Diablo has some nice usages in Mono Dark Demon, though combat form Milim is kinda mid. So I wouldn't throw too much into it, as the New Year's units might be something you could consider looking out for. So look out for our guides on them in the near future. And I'll see you all in the next one.